Hey everyone, welcome to Cyber-Conversations, the show where it's okay to agree to disagree. Today, Vern and I are finishing up our conversation on Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Real quick, I wanted to let you know that there is a possibility that that our show might be on a brief one-week hiatus around the week of May, I want to say May 5th. It might actually be May 12th. That there will be there might not be a show. I'm actually in the process of moving into a new house, and so my recording ability is curtailed to before the move or after the move. So just to let you know, there might be a 1 week period where there's no show. Um, but in any case, this episode is starting now. I hope you hit like and subscribe, and I hope you enjoy the show. Thanks, everyone. He did.
Out all the stops,
Yeah.
and he initiates Order 66.
Yeah. And Order 66
something that we
is
did
a
not know anything
huge
about until the
thing.
moment it happened.
Yeah, it was a huge thing, and I kind of went back and forth about how I felt about the clones. Like at the first time I saw it, the first time I saw it, because we didn't have the Clone Wars yet. We didn't know how it affected the clones. And so part of me kind of wanted the clones to be that cold and uncaring that when they heard Order 66, it was just like, turn on the Jedi, we don't care. Because that would have made them even more evil. But I also kind of like how they did do it, where they had no choice. There was a chip in their brain that was switched on, and now all of a sudden they saw Jedi as enemies, and they had to attack them. Um, Back when the movie
Yeah,
first
and
came
the
out.
Bad Batch really pins that out too, because in
Yeah.
the Bad Batch it explores in detail how irresistible that chip is, how like
Well,
a
also
few
season
clones
7.
that were aberrant enough to get away from it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
season
also
7
also
did too
season
with
7 with Rex.
Echo.
Rex. Well, season 6 had Tup. Tup was
Echo
no in
and
se-
Tough. Yeah,
Tup, Tup killed a Jedi because his chip activated. That was the season premiere of season
right.
6. But in season 7,
Yep, and that was
the
almost
last
tipping the Emperor's hand there for a minute.
yeah, and then of course they managed to keep it under wraps so that we could get what we did get. But in the finale, in episode, it wasn't actually the finale, but the last 4 episodes of season 7 of the Clone Wars is, like I said before, it takes place concurrently to Revenge of the Sith. And when Order 66 happens, Rex, who has always been a friend to Ahsoka, who has been loyal to her and who has trained her, and when she comes in and you see him, he drops his helmet and you see a tear run down his face, and you can tell like he's completely torn, and he manages to resist just long enough to tell her, go look for Fives. Fives was the clone trooper who found out the truth and was killed before he could tell anyone.
Mm-hmm.
But she finds out about Fives because Rex tells her to before he succumbs to it, and then he still opens fire on her whether he wants to or not. Um, but of course, and I'm not going to spoil what happens. But yeah, it was fantastic. But when the movie first came
I
out, I
heard
really didn't
that
know
the reason. Uh huh.
when Revenge of the Sith first came out, I was torn because, or not when the movie first came out, but when I first heard what the Clone Wars said about the clones, that they were forced to, I didn't know how I felt about it because there was a part of me that thought it would be better if they were really just that cold and heartless and didn't care at all. You tell them to fire on someone and they fire on someone. And if it's their best friend, it doesn't matter. You told me to fire on them, and I fire on them. But I also like the fact that they were brainwashed because it takes away their agency. It makes them pitiable characters that we can feel bad for, you know?
And now they're being made into droids
Yeah.
to turn on the very people that they've been protecting.
Yeah. And then,
I
of course,
heard
the
that
Empire discards them.
and who's
And then the Empire discards them afterward anyway.
Allura
Who?
Aloya Sakura,
Oh,
the Jedi Master,
Ayla.
the sexy Twi'lek,
Yeah. Ayla
Ayla
Secura.
Sakura,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Yeah, the reason why her squad fired on her and then kept
Oh,
firing on
yeah.
her, the
Because they
canon
wanted to make
explanation for
sure,
that is that they loved her.
they loved her, and they
They
wanted to make
loved her
sure that
so
they
much
didn't want her to
that
suffer.
and they couldn't resist the order when the chip activated, but they wanted to fill her full of so much energy that her suffering was over quickly.
Yeah.
Because it is a brutal scene where they attack her from behind, she
It
goes
was,
down, and then
and
we
they
don't
keep
get to
firing.
see
Yeah.
it, but they fill her full of lead. And
Yeah.
it seems kind of excessive, but that's the explanation, which I don't know if that was come up after the fact or if that was actually the thinking
Ayla
when they did
Secura,
the animation
Ayla
itself,
Secura is
but it makes
also
sense.
Ayla Secura is also one of my favorite Jedi, for selfish reasons
We
because
don't
she.
see nearly enough of her.
No, there was a couple of episodes of her in the Clone Wars, one or two, but mostly
Yeah.
just I'm a guy. She was a sexy Twilight, but in
Well, she has a cool story though. Like her character is actually pretty cool. But beyond the shapely figure, her character is really cool. Her background is very
yeah,
cool. And I feel like she's a character that deserved to have a little bit more attention.
yeah. I think the biggest problem, again, it's because it's rushed. The whole Order 66 scene, I would have. The part of me kind of wants to have seen more of the Jedi die, and more visceral death scenes because it was supposed to be so horrific. And at the same time, they didn't have time to do it, and
Geez,
there
you
were.
wanted more visceral death scenes. Is that what Josh is asking
Well, I'm
for?
not saying like visceral in. I didn't want it to be gruesome, but
The
I
the
feel
the,
like
the Order 66 is hard to watch,
it
man.
is, but it's supposed to be.
It's like the most heroic good guys being destroyed
Yeah,
in a
but
compressed period of time than any other movie I can think of.
yeah, but I've seen a couple of people who splice together um, other other shots, like other media of Order 66, including when we see, if you've played Jedi Fallen Order, there's a depiction of Order 66 in
I
that.
haven't.
I recommend it. There's also there's Order 66 shown at the beginning of the Bad Batch, and it appeared in what was it? Obi-Wan. Yeah, there was shots of it in Obi-Wan. There was shots of it in The Mandalorian. And someone had spliced them all together to make like one extended Order 66 scene. And
Wow. Just endless gut wrenching hero deaths.
because it's supposed to be such a huge thing, like it's supposed to be such a gut punch, that even though I would hate for it to go on longer, I also feel like it would have been to the movie's benefit to really make us like, for us to be reeling afterward. Oh my, like the end of the Avengers Infinity War, where we see half of everyone disappear, and we see heroes that we love, the people that we weren't even expecting, they all fade out. Black Panther, no one expected him to go, and he just turns into ashes and disappears. Spider-Man turns into ashes. It was, and it goes on and on and on, and you see all these characters dying. That made it brutal, but it also made it very memorable. And I kind of feel like,
What they should have done is just shown Anakin killing all those kids. I mean,
no, no, I,
it would have been it would have been a lot more gut wrenching to see him, decapitating them and
no,
cutting
no,
their arms off and
no.
running them
We talked
through and
about this
stuff. I
last
mean,
week.
how often do you get to see a 4-year-old go to the ground?
No, no, we talked about this when we were talking about Attack of the Clones. I do think there's a line drawn for kids, but aside from from the whole line drawn in the sand, I'm not
It's a line
saying.
drawn. I'll say this I see your point, but like it was gut wrenching enough. It is a big deal. If you see all of that destruction and depression and negativity and death, the whole turning of the tides, the bad guys are winning, and not just winning, but like it looks like they've won. If that doesn't punch you enough, and you have to add more onto that salad to get more of a punch, maybe you're struggling with a desensitization issue.
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe,
Um, I don't know.
maybe.
But I do know that it was gut punch. It was a huge gut punch to me. I didn't feel too bad about Mundi because I never really cared about him much. But I was very upset when Ayla Secura died.
He's another cool character.
He is cool, but he wasn't my
Yeah,
favorite.
and his death is so sudden. Like we
Yeah,
honestly, it's Star Wars. We have seen so many good pilots go up in a puff of flame and smoke, and he goes up in a puff of flame and smoke. We didn't really get a chance to know him, so yeah, it's visceral to see a Jedi leader die. But frankly, if you're not paying attention, you may not even realize he's a Jedi leader.
yeah.
He's
But
just another explosion of another fighter.
but I felt worse when Ayla Secura died and when what's his name? Uh,
Conehead.
no, that's Mundi. Um, Mundi is the Conehead who
Oh, I'm
dies on the
sorry.
bridge.
I was talking.
Plo
I'm
Koon.
sorry. I was talking about
Yeah,
the planet
Plo,
pilot. Plo Koon. Yeah,
Plo
right.
Koon.
I
Yeah,
got the two
I
mixed up.
was really
Yes.
upset when he
Yeah.
died because he was a great character. I didn't feel the same about Mundi. I also felt bad when it was Shakti, right, on the speeder. I didn't feel
Yeah, that's right.
I didn't feel as bad for her, but she was a cool character, and it was a gut punch no matter what. But
Yeah. And if you're paying attention, you realize that the only reason why these clones can sort of nod to each other and then hang back on their speeders and then blow her away without her Jedi reflexes seeing it coming a half a second ahead of time and getting out of the way.
it's
The
because
only
she
reason why
trusted
that's
them.
that you can argue that it's happening because it's a story. But I would argue, if you're paying attention, that it's because the shadow of the dark side has been closing in to the point where even Yoda admits that they can't see the future like they used to. And now, as of Order 66, the shroud of the dark side absolutely covers the anybody's ability to be able to use the Force. And it's one of the reasons why Palpatine slices through Kit Fisto and the rest of them until only Mace is remaining. It's one of the reasons why that was able to happen because it's not just that he's such a damn good sword fighter. It's that the reason why Jedi's have an edge because they can see things coming a second before it happens, and his dark side aura jammed that ability. And if
Well,
you are used to seeing things happen a second before they happen, and then suddenly you can't, you can easily get shot in the back.
yeah, but I think George Lucas actually also said that when Palpatine lunged at those Jedi, he was doing it at like superhuman speeds. We just saw it because it was basically
Maybe
slow motion.
didn't
And
look
the
like
same thing,
superhuman speed to me.
yeah,
I'm saying from a thinking point of view, if you're thinking like to me, that's part of the gut punch. That's part of the horror of Order 66. That turning point is not just the clones are our enemies now. That turning point is a final closing of the light. Like the iris has been closing and we're trapped in this growing darkness and the last point of light is gone. And that's the reason why the clones were able to blast Plo Koon out of the sky. That's the reason why they caught Aayla Secura off guard. That's why these Jedi's are falling. It's not because I trusted you guys and you shot me in the back. I should have seen that coming, but they don't see it coming. Jedi after Jedi after Jedi proves that the shroud of the dark side is absolutely fallen. If you're thinking, if you're paying attention, that is just as gut wrenching as watching these heroes fall.
well, I also think that to a degree, it could also have been trust. The Jedi trusted the clone troopers because the clone troopers had always been loyal.
But that doesn't address the magic ability that the Jedi's have for seeing things happen before they happen. Any one of them could have jumped out of the way. None of them were able to because their ability to use the Force was utterly diminished at that point.
Yeah,
The dark side is a huge invisible wave over the galaxy that is not even really something that's ever illustrated to us, but you can feel it. The magic ability that the Jedi have that we've taken for granted all this time is suddenly not theirs to command.
Yeah.
And that's how powerful this wave of darkness is.
Yeah.
It's much more scary to me because it speaks of a unstoppable ever-present supernatural force that is literally holding the whole galaxy together, and that means this darkness can be felt in every corner. There isn't any place where Jedis are going to be able to hide now, but because the dark side is now in charge of everything. And I don't know that I maybe it's just me, but that affects me a lot more deeply than the pew pew and the lightsabers.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's obvious.
Yeah.
I think I'm not reading into it too much. I feel like that's part of the gut punch.
Yeah. But then, but Yoda does. I mean, the only reason Obi-Wan survives is because Commander Cody, I guess, was a bad shot. Um, but Obi-Wan survives because he falls into the water. Yoda survives because he does sense it, and he beheads the two
Yeah,
clone
Yoda's the
troopers.
only one. You notice?
Yeah, and
Like
he,
Yoda, to me, Yoda proves my point because he's the most powerful of all of them, and he has the magic ability that everyone else seems to have lost.
yeah,
That capacity to see something coming a second before it happens.
yeah. So in any case, yeah, it was a great scene seeing Yoda, behead those two. Not the beheading
Yep.
itself, but
And then
just how,
Anakin goes
and
storming
then
into the Jedi Temple looking very Vaderish with his stormtroopers behind.
yeah, and of course we get
Pivotal
the
moment in
kids,
the story.
and I will say, like, I guess that George Lucas deserves credit. That is the best probably that he could do to tell us the kids were being killed without showing the kids being killed. Because I agree, I would not want to see the kids being killed. Um, but we knew that they had to die. So this was probably the best way to do it. Is just
I don't know.
uh,
I think Lucas was merciless in his punching of your gut. Because I don't think the kids had to die. I think that Anakin could have gone straight through the central corridor, slaying everybody in his path, and it would have been inferred that when he got to the nursery, he killed all the kids. Or we could have actually seen one of the Jedi's spiriting the kids out of a secret exit just before Anakin arrived, and then Anakin slays every other Jedi in the room. And maybe those Jedi would have actually had a fighting chance. Those kids may have had a fighting chance, but then we also presume that at some point Vader tracks each and every one of them down and slays them, but we don't have to tell those stories because we get it.
yeah.
So I don't
Well,
know if the kids
the
had
point,
to die.
I don't
I
know if
think
they had
that
to,
it would have been easy to infer it.
but yeah, George Lucas, I think that he wanted to imply that the kids were being killed, but he didn't want to do it on screen, and he did the best he could. And I think that's about
Yeah.
the most tasteful way he could do it, is to have,
Yeah.
an establishing shot with a kid saying, Master Skywalker, to show the kids trust him.
The cutest kid in the room, just so
Yeah,
that we can make sure that we
Master
know that
Skywalker,
this
there's
is
too many of
really
them.
a
What are we
hard
going to
thing to
do?
handle.
And he has that look. Um, and it might have been icing on the cake if he had
Trusting,
a tear.
confused,
Yeah,
desperate. The very person he's reaching to for help is the person that he needs
yeah.
to fear,
And
but he doesn't know to fear him because they're Jedi and they trust.
I wonder if it might have been more powerful if they showed Anakin have that look, but with a tear, like even Anakin knows this is going too far, but he's doing it anyway because Padme. I don't know. But in any case, they
Yeah, I
don't
don't know.
show it, but they did it, and they die. We have a token shot of Chewbacca helping Yoda, just because we had to have Chewbacca in there. If we're gonna have Wookiees, we have to show Chewbacca. Um, well, so now we know
So
that.
he slays the temple, and we have to mention that George Lucas's son is
Yeah,
the youngling
Jet.
on the catwalk that
Yeah,
runs out with trying to jump into Bail Organa's speeder,
yeah,
and he gets gunned down.
yeah,
And that's pretty gut wrenching too. I mean, the kid is like 12, 13, maybe 14 years old,
yeah.
and and Bail
It's the only
is our
youngling that we
resident good guy.
actually. It's the only youngling we see that we
Watch
actually
get
see
gunned
die.
down.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, and it almost feels like there's that he has permission to do that because it's literally his son.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know how that makes it okay, but it does seem like he didn't take
Well,
someone
also he
else's
was.
child and kill them on screen.
Well, also maybe
So maybe he
because.
gets away with it.
Well, also because he does seem older than the younglings. Like he looks almost old enough to be a
Yeah,
Padawan.
I don't know how watching a 12-year-old get gunned down is any easier to handle than watching a 4-year-old get gunned down, but okay.
I don't know. I'm just drawing at. I'm
It's
just.
pretty harsh.
Yeah,
It
I'm
is pretty
grasping at
harsh
straws. Is what I was gonna
because
say. But yeah, we get
yeah,
that,
I
and
get
then
it. I get
and then
it. We don't know what to do.
yeah, and then Obi-Wan, of course, makes contact with Bail and with Yoda. They get back together and they realize that there's a signal coming from the Jedi Temple asking all the Jedi to come back because it's a trap and they want to kill all the rest of the Jedi. So they come up with a plan to go to the temple to stop that transmission, and at the same time, Bail gets called to a special meeting at the Senate where we can finally see um, Palpatine, you know, basically declare martial law and
The
say,
attack by the Jedi has left me scarred and dethroned.
yeah,
It's so funny to me how hundreds and hundreds of presumably intelligent ambassadorial types buy this hook, line, and sinker. I mean, the guy
well, they do it.
is
They,
basically the devil now with his black robe and his scrotum face.
yeah, and they do it, but that's mirroring real life. And that's as close to that
Yeah,
topic as I'm going to get, but
this
that's
is how
exactly what
liberty
happened.
dies.
And that is exactly what happened.
This is how liberty dies.
Yeah. So, but that
So
is a
he
great line,
announces. So
though.
he plays it. He just plays it like an expert. He literally takes exactly what happens
Yeah.
and he turns it upside down. And
Yeah.
it really was the Jedi who came and aggressed against him. It really was Mace that was trying to kill him. It really was Anakin that saved him. So I mean, he was able to paint that picture so successfully in
Yeah.
front of the galaxy that they bought it. Even
Yeah.
by
I
the
mean, he
time he
makes
had
it.
secured himself as the emperor, he was too powerful to stop. But
Yeah.
until then, he had everyone's trust because of the way he played the game.
Yeah, because it looked a lot like a sniper had shot at him and just grazed him, and he had a little bit of blood on his face and still pumped his fist in the air and said, "In the name of security, I'm going to call this the Empire, and we'll have a safe and secure democracy." And
Those
and everyone
who
clapped.
desire security over freedom deserve neither.
Yeah,
Was that Benjamin Franklin? I think that was Franklin.
might be. That's a good quote too.
So then he sends Vader to Mustafar. Pretty much everything is secure now. The war is over. Grievous is dead. Dooku's dead. Palpatine has absolute control and, for whatever reason, absolute trust. And then he has commanded that all the separatists are rounded up into one place, and he sends Vader on his first mission
To wipe them out.
to go
Wipe
and
them out. All
destroy
of
every single one
them.
of them. So,
Yeah.
so everybody was a frickin' pawn. Everybody,
Yep.
literally everybody. Naboo was a pawn.
Um.
Okay. Well, anyway, so
Yeah.
everybody's a pawn.
Yep.
The Galactic Senate's a pawn. The Jedi, all of them are
The
pawns.
separatists were
His
pawns.
home planet
Everyone.
is
Yeah.
a pawn. All the Separatists are pawns. Grievous was a pawn. Dooku's a pawn. On and on.
It would have been
Everybody,
a great
Maul
callback,
was a
though.
pawn.
It would have been a great callback if he actually did say "wipe them out, all of them." It would have been a callback
Well, it's
because
only 2 movies prior. That's
yeah, but still, because he basically says the same thing. Might as well have a little
yeah.
shout out. But in any case, he doesn't. So,
Obi-Wan confronts Padme and finds out by
because he already
intuition
found
or
out.
by coincidence.
Well, yeah, because he already found out that Anakin had killed the younglings, so he goes to Padme, and I would assume it's intuition. Um, he knows
Yeah,
that.
kind of
He,
common sense.
yeah. Um, and he also figures out that she's pregnant, and well, I mean, he probably senses the other mind
It's kind
there.
of hard not to notice how pregnant she is at this point.
Yeah, and so he says Anakin's the father, and of course she doesn't say anything, but her silence
Yeah,
speaks volumes.
it honestly, it's kind of a bro's intuition more than a Jedi's intuition at this point. I think he just figures it out.
Yeah. But in any
So
case,
Anakin goes and wipes everybody out. I'm actually quite satisfied to see Newt Gunray finally executed.
yeah, I hate to
I
say it.
feel like he's deserved that since day
He's
one.
yeah, he has. The only thing I hate to maybe this makes me sound like a little bit too immature, but I kind of wish that his death took a little bit longer because I wanted it drawn
I would
out.
have liked to have seen him tortured. Yes,
Yeah,
I really would have.
I would have liked to at
he's a
least.
he's a freaking lizard. He's not a
Yeah,
child. He's not a human child. He's a lizard
yeah,
man. I would have liked to seen him taken apart piece at a time or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah. It would have been better than just silencing him like that. But whatever.
So
Um,
damn annoying.
yeah, but we do get to see him grovel for a few minutes before he gets cut down.
All the pawns are taken out, and all that's left is is
It's the
Palpatine
inevitable.
and
It's
his
Palpatine
apprentice.
and
Yep,
yeah, and so
Sidious and Vader.
yeah. So Yoda against Palpatine was a good fight. My favorite part of that was Yoda's entrance and just force pushing the two guards into the wall.
Oh yeah, just with the slightest wave of his hand, he just
Yeah,
takes out the guards like they're nothing.
yeah. Um, it
And
was
he
just
punks Palpatine once or twice.
yeah. It was a good fight. The only thing I didn't like was how abruptly it ends. Because it looked like Yoda wasn't all that hurt. I mean, he obviously was at least enough to flee. Or maybe it's because he couldn't find his lightsaber. I'm not really sure. Um, but for whatever reason, Yoda leaves. So Palpatine wins that fight, and then we also have um, Anakin and Padme, and it's for us on the outside, not seeing Anakin's thoughts, it's really rough watching him saying that she's turned against him, and you kind of want to throttle him.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you kind of want to throttle
Yeah,
him and be like, "What did you think was going to happen when you killed those
but
kids? Did you really think she
I
was
think
going to
it's
say thank
obvious
you?"
when. Yeah, I thought you'd appreciate the gesture. I mean, I only killed 12 of them, you
Yeah,
know. Um, but I think that it's obvious with him and Obi-Wan's ensuing conversation that Anakin is seeing everything upside down at this point.
yeah,
Good is bad, bad is good, up is down, down is up.
yeah. But it
From
kind of
my
makes me,
perspective,
yeah,
the Jedi are the problem, and then Obi-Wan says, "Then you are
you're
lost,"
lost. Yeah,
because when we fail to perceive right and wrong, we march into psychopath town, where the very thing that we think we're doing good is actually evil,
yeah,
and the very thing that we are calling evil may be the good that's trying to stop us,
yeah.
and it's common. It happens all throughout history.
But it does get frustrating when they're talking because he says you turned her against me, and all he says is, and all Obi-Wan says is, "You have done that yourself." Like,
Sure.
expand on it. Say,
That's good dialogue, in my opinion. I
I
love
think
the
it's
way
good, but it would have been better.
Ewan McGregor delivers that line.
I love the way he delivers it, and it's not that it's not written well, but I still would have liked him to go further. He should have said, "You have done that yourself. What did you think was going to happen when you killed a bunch of kids? Did you think that Padme was going to appreciate that? What was going through your mind? Anything." Because, as you said, Anakin's not thinking at this point. To him, up is
Well, he
down.
is thinking. He is thinking. It's just he's thinking in reverse. That's
Yeah.
all. He's thinking like an evil person.
Yeah, but I guess if
I mean, Hitler thought he was doing everybody a favor.
yeah,
In his own mind, he thought that he was doing his people a favor. He thought he was doing humanity a favor. He thought he was doing the future a favor. He was pragmatic in the sense that, yeah, sure, it's going to hurt a little bit, but you know what? It's all going to seem worth it in the end. You'll see. That is evil. That
yeah,
is how evil thinks.
yeah.
You could with pragmatism, you can justify all manner of humanitarian atrocities.
Yeah, I guess it's just that I maybe again because I'm seeing it from the outside and because I have limitless time to think about it. I want Obi-Wan to say more to Anakin. And it's not that I don't like the dialogue in that. I think that the scene is done really well. I think you and Hayden like act the hell out of it. It's just I want Obi-Wan to confront him with rationality, even though I know he's going to turn it down. But he should have known killing kids was going to lose Padme. Turning to the dark side was going to lose Padme. Joining the Emperor, who Padme had already told him she was like having second thoughts about the Republic, and he still sees her leaving him. He doesn't see that he's the one who's done the leaving. He's not who he used to be, and he has turned her away. Like he pushed her away by doing all of this, but he can't see it. So yeah,
Exactly.
it's realistic.
It's not unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's not frustrating. It's frustrating, but it's not frustrating. Like, why did they put that in the story?
No,
That's
I
not
don't
how
mean.
human beings
Yeah,
act. That's absolutely how human beings act.
yeah, no, I don't mean it's frustrating as far as the movie is concerned. I'm talking about it's frustrating to watch.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, yeah. I hear you.
yeah,
I
yeah.
hear you.
It's like
It's
it
very frustrating.
like
It's
Gaston,
very
Beauty and the
frustrating to
Beast.
watch evil destroy itself and then point a finger everywhere and blame everybody except itself in the process.
Yeah,
I see it all the time, and it is very frustrating.
watch Beauty and the Beast when Gaston, talks about killing the beast, and you kind of want to jump in there and be like, are you like absolutely gone
Psychopath.
mad? Yeah,
Yeah,
because
psychopath.
you kind of want to just say to all the townspeople who are falling for it, like, what the hell are you doing? But they're not listening because yeah, I see it every day, so it makes perfect sense. It's just it's hard to watch. But then
And
we
that's the
get
thing about Star Wars is that we are dealing with something that is galactic. We're dealing with thousands of intelligent species in a whacked out, far out sci-fi environment with space wizards and lasers. But it's really a human story about humans doing human things,
yeah.
even in the most depraved and violent sense, all the way to the most self-sacrificing and heroic sense, even to the point of embedding our own religions and our own mythologies into the lingo and the action. It's all of those things, but I think ultimately the reason why Star Wars appeals so much is because it really is a human story full of human elements that we recognize.
Yeah. So then we get the lightsaber fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan, and we're right back to the. I hate to sound like a broken record, but we're right back to the solid gold dancing. It's over I think it's over choreographed.
Oh, and gold dancing. Wow.
I
Okay.
feel like it's over
The
choreographed.
fight on Mustafar is spectacular.
It's cool looking.
It's one of the yeah, it is very cool looking. That's
It
what it's
just
supposed to be.
it just
It
it
is not
just
supposed to be a couple of Spaniards with rapiers. It is not supposed to be a fencing competition. It is space wizards that defy gravity, and have lit up laser swords.
but as I said,
It's fought over a volcano. I mean,
yeah,
it's supposed to look cool, and
yeah.
that it very much
But
does.
as I said, like one of the things that I don't like is that they do flourishes so much that could throw them off balance that they ought to lose. There is an actual shot when it's near the end of the fight, but not at the very end, when Obi-Wan is on that little skiff, that little floating thing above the lava, and Anakin jumps and lands on the railing, I think, or right on the edge of it, and he loses his balance. He actually has to throw his arms out because he's about to topple backwards into the lava. And you see him stop to steady himself. And if Obi-Wan wasn't so busy doing a goddamn flourish, he would have sliced Anakin in half. But instead, he's too busy with his flourish. And that bugs me because I've heard what you said about these are Jedi and they can use the Force to catch themselves. They're completely on balance all the time because of Force magic. But Anakin lost his balance. That should have been the end of it to any rational sword fighter. But nope, can't do that because Obi-Wan's got to look cool while doing it. He's got to do a little flippy thing with his lightsaber, flip it around his back instead of killing the guy he's supposed to kill.
Ironically, the only thing about this battle that I have a problem with is how abruptly it ends. And it's like we have to end it at some point. And it's really kind of at this point, all the way through the battle, it's been sort of what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's all said and done, it's like Anakin, I know you're the most powerful being in the universe. But if you get if you confront me while I'm 2 feet higher than you, it's over. The battle is over. There's no possible way you could win at this point because I am now 3 feet higher than you.
I'm assuming
It
that's
doesn't make sense.
yeah, that's a big meme now. Everyone loves to make fun of that.
Right.
The fact that
So it
because
does
I have the
again
high
rush
ground
it.
and like it's automatically over.
Yeah, it's
And
definitely over. You should
talk
just give
about
up right now.
talk about a missed opportunity too, because if you watch Obi-Wan Kenobi, which that's my favorite of all of the Disney Plus shows that's come out so far. But one thing I will say in the final episode, when it's Obi-Wan versus Darth Vader, Darth Vader actually gets Obi-Wan into the bottom of a pit. Darth Vader has the high ground, and he should have said something, but he doesn't say it, and he still loses. So I guess that high ground advantage only it's only applicable if you talk about it.
It's only applicable when it is beside a river of molten rock,
Yeah,
I
and you
assume.
have to say it. You have to say I have the high ground. If you don't say I have the high ground, then all bets are off.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's not a huge complaint, but
Yeah,
it's the only thing about the whole battle that it's just like,
it
what?
is,
Okay, moving on.
and it is kind of
It's a
abrupt.
Saturday morning cartoon feel. It's a Saturday morning cartoon feel. We're rushing still.
Yeah,
Don't mean to beat a dead horse. It's just like we are rushing,
yeah,
and that has been the problem all along. There's no reason to keep overstating it.
yeah. But you're right, and that also is why, even though again, Star Wars has never been about like accruing as much grue as possible. They don't make things gory. At the same time, like we don't even really see what happens. We see the after effect that Anakin lands in the sand minus two legs and an arm, but we really didn't see how it like how did he manage to cut off both his legs and his arm? Did he do like some kind of L-shaped swing? I have
It
no
was a
idea how.
circular swing. It was
Yeah,
a circular swing that was perfectly timed. It was almost like if you can imagine like a vortex that Anakin fell directly into.
yeah. In any case, we couldn't see it well enough. So and because it happened so quickly as well, we don't see it. And we
Yeah,
and
I remember when I first saw the movie, I was surprised because I don't know why I believe this, but I always thought that what killed Anakin was crashing in a starfighter. I always thought he was a product of like burning up inside the cockpit of a starfighter. But this idea that that Obi-Wan was specifically responsible,
I
that's
actually
rough.
that actually goes
Especially if you go back to episode 4 when he's talking about how, yeah, my best friend, here's his lightsaber.
yeah.
Like, man, that's what affected me so deeply. And there's a YouTube remix where somebody took that and made a very gravity rich 7-8 minute YouTube video where you've watched the first scene there in Star Wars where Obi-Wan explains to
Yeah,
Luke,
we talked about that.
about his past.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we talked about that.
and then you see what it really happened. And so the fact that he's telling him that story and he knows he's responsible for slicing him up by hand and then watching him die
I'm
in
pretty sure I
front of
put the
him.
link on that too in that first episode when we talked about A New Hope. We talked about
And then
that.
he picked up his lightsaber right where his severed arm dropped it. And
Yeah.
that was the lightsaber he was handing to his son now,
Now,
who is about the same age.
for what it's worth, just in response to you always thought that he died in in crashing in a fire explosion in his in a spaceship. I do know that we're going back quite a few years, but when I was a kid, so this is long before the prequels came out. They had a book, like a game that you could play with two people if you bought two books, and it was about like Jedi fighting. Um, I forget the whole. I forget how it was played, but you had to have these two books, and one of them had a description of how Darth Vader became the character that we saw. And they did
Mm.
talk about like he was burnt to a crisp in a volcano fighting Obi-Wan. So that at least is going back way like a long time. That George Lucas had thought of that.
I
Way
could be
before.
mistaken. I want to say I may have just made it up in my head, but I feel like the novelization of Star Wars had something to had suggested that it was a Starfighter
The
accident that
novelization.
or Starfighter implosion or something that killed him. Yeah, I want to say that I
I
don't
read
like
it.
somebody can
I don't
probably
remember
chime in and
that.
correct me if I'm wrong, but it's been a long time
Yeah, I
since I've
haven't
read
read
it.
that since
So,
I was a
but
kid, but I
something
did
put
read it.
that bug in my ear, like
Yeah,
pre-internet. Something put that bug in my ear before the internet was even a thing.
yeah. I actually would like to find that I forgot what it was called, but it was like two little booklets, and you could and there was another series that had nothing to do with Star Wars, but was played very similarly. And I think it was called Lost Worlds. I'm not sure. It was Lost something, where you would basically have a character booklet and you would trade books and you had to like decide what your move was going to be, and it was like basically fighting like a combat between these two creatures or characters. I gotta look
Oh,
that up.
cool. Well, that's exactly. I used to have a collection of like choose your own adventure books,
No, it
and
wasn't a choose your
choose
own
your own adventure
adventure
was just
though.
the
It
I
was
get it. I
yeah,
get it. Choose Your Own Adventure is like the most commonly understood type of book that is in the realm of books that you used to be able to buy, where you'd roll a character in the beginning and all of the rules were given to you, and then you'd read the story and you'd actually have combat. It was like playing an RPG by yourself, and they had sci-fi ones and they had fantasy ones, and I used to have a giant box full of them. I had a whole collection. And when I say choose your own adventure, it doesn't at all give justice to like what the whole genre was, but it's the one thing most people will recognize, the title that most people will recognize.
yeah. I'm still trying to find. Yeah, wait, is this it? I'll have to send it to you if this is it. No, that's not it. I'll find it and I'll send it to you.
So anyway, the war is over,
Yeah. So
and
we
Palpatine has defeated Yoda, and the Council is on the bad guy side, and Bale is fully familiar on the inside of everything that's going on. This is Princess Leia's father, so
yeah
like we now have an ally of the rebellion that was there when it all went down and saw it happen firsthand.
yeah, and we
Oh,
have
by the way, I have to mention the maternity robot, the
yeah
maternity droid. That whole thing is so sterile and robotic. I think that most women that have ever given birth probably thought you got a kick out of how robotic and comfortable Padme's. She was, crying out in childbirth and stuff, but that whole situation was so sterile. It was definitely childbirth that had a nice, convenient Star Wars shine sort of polished over it.
yeah. Um, and I think a lot of people have complained about the fact that Padme loses the will to live because they said, well, I might be getting it wrong, but I think they said it's because it reduces her. They feel like it makes her just a damsel in distress. It takes away all of her agency and all of that
Well, see,
fire.
I disagree.
I have
I
no
disagree.
idea.
I think it gives her great agency because how many people could just lose the will to live and die? It takes a very powerful mind to be able to do that, and it also takes a very very deep, almost incomprehensible level of suffering. So I think that's a very powerful thing that suggests that Padme is perhaps even more powerful than we give her credit for, and that there's a reason why Luke and Leia get that Force legacy passed down to them that goes beyond just Anakin. Yeah, I think
But
that
I mean,
it's a powerful
I
thing to
guess
say that she lost the will to live.
if she was that powerful though, then she should have stayed alive because her kids would have needed her and the galaxy would have needed her to fight against Vader. But instead, she gave
Mm.
up and she died. I mean,
If
not
she was
gave up.
force sensitive, she may have detected things that we have only sort of touched on, but don't have any ability to
Well, they
appreciate.
never.
If she was force sensitive, she might have felt the. I mean, honestly, dude, even if she wasn't force sensitive, she's got two incredibly force sensitive babies in her belly, and they've been there for 9 months. I mean, the encounter that she had with Anakin could have very well attached her to him in the state that he was in, which was this incredibly powerful vortex of force energy. And now that vortex has reversed.
Yeah.
So what she could be feeling things that we don't really have any appreciation for because it isn't given to us. It isn't spoon fed to us from the story, but she could be going through things that are way worse than what it looks like. Oh, she lost her
I'm
boyfriend and
not.
now she's a single mom. Could be more than that.
I'm not taking sides on that one because I really don't Like I just can't decide. But I know that there are some people who don't like the fact that she died, that she just died, like gave up and lost the will to live over a man.
Yeah.
But and I understand their point, but I also understand yours, and I'm not taking sides on this because
Yeah,
like
I've never heard that beef before. Everybody's got a beef about something, but yeah, I get it.
yeah. Um, but so she dies. They decide to split the kids up. They give Leia a gorgeous life on Alderaan, and they put Luke in the middle of nowhere in a desert with an uncle who doesn't even like him that
God.
much.
Oh
I'm
man, that
joking
is
about
such a
that.
shitty end of the stick, man.
I
No, serious.
no,
It makes sense that they put him in two different parts of the galaxy, so that if something terrible happened, like oh I don't know, Alderaan blowing up or something, they'd still have another hope. But and I get it that Luke's family, in a sense, was in Tatooine, but so is Leia's family in
yeah.
Tatooine. So yeah, the fact that she gets made a princess and he gets made a dirt farmer is just a
Yeah,
shitty
but
deal for him.
I will say, like, going by A New Hope, it doesn't seem like his uncle cares that much. He's just like, no, I know that you want to leave, but you can't because you got to help me farm. But I will say that the Obi-Wan show really made Owen and Beru much more caring, and I like that. I appreciated that for them.
Yeah,
That they
yeah.
stood up to an Inquisitor to protect Luke. That was
Well, and that's how I always took it. Maybe because I'm a father, and like I get that Owen was like kind of a 1970s image of a tough father figure that was, doing the right thing, but real gruff about communicating it. He
mhm,
loved Luke,
yeah,
and I don't think he was as interested in having Luke help him with the moisture evaporators as he was protecting Luke from the same fate as his father.
yeah,
And so he was willing to drag his feet as long as possible to keep Luke out of the sky
yeah. So I
because he
was,
knew as soon as that journey got started, it would not stop until Luke was either dead or was the big hero.
yeah, I was kind of joking when I said that he was with two people who didn't care about him. I didn't actually mean that. I was saying it to be funny, but you're
And
right.
and
It
and
is,
Baru obviously cared very much.
yeah, yeah.
She seemed like a very sweet character as a young woman, and then as the older
As the
Aunt
old
Beru,
version,
like
yeah.
she actually spends most of her lines sticking up for Luke.
Yeah, yeah. So I was joking, but the truth is they do care about him very much. But yeah, it's kind of unbalanced that Leia gets, to live on Alderaan and Luke becomes a moisture farmer. Um, but whatever, that's what happens, and that's the movie.
Yeah, love the closing shot of our familiar Tatooine with our familiar little family,
And we
our
also finally got to see,
Owen, Baru, and Luke.
we also finally got to see Alderaan a little bit because we never really saw
A
it before.
little bit, yeah.
Yeah, this is
Finally,
we
yeah,
finally get like a 5 second shot of Alderaan, because the only
yeah.
other shot we had of it was a sphere that gets blown up. Um, we get to see a little bit more of it in the Obi-Wan show.
It looks like an Earth-like planet, and Leia tells us that it is, has no weapons, and
Yeah,
is,
it's
we
peaceful.
presume that means it's a planet of peace, and so that's kind of mean they blew that up, but like we have no idea what got lost.
Yeah.
We have no idea
Well,
what their
this is part
monuments
of
are, what their
why
cities look like, or
this
we don't even know anybody that lives there.
this is part of why I think Andor is such a great show, is because without it, we don't get a great look at how evil the Empire is. Because when A New Hope came out, especially before the prequels, all we knew of Alderaan was, it's a ball in space. We're told that it's a peaceful place with no weapons, and that's it. We don't see a single person from there other than Leia. We don't know anything about it. So it gets blown up, but it's a completely foreign thing to us. We can't feel bad for it. So it's kind of like, oh, it's just another casualty for the Empire. But when you watch a show like Andor, which shows how grim this is under the Empire, well, that's why I think the show is so vital. Some people said it's boring, and compared to other Star Wars, it's slow and it doesn't have a lot of action, but it doesn't need action. It's a story about how awful life is and why
Oh
someone
yeah.
like Andor, like Cassian Andor, why he would go from a person who's just trying to stay alive and mind his own business to becoming a huge freedom fighter. completely on the side of the growing rebellion. That's what this show is about.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that thinks Andor is boring, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't have an important story to tell. That doesn't
Yeah,
mean that it isn't,
I don't even find it
critical to
boring.
the Star Wars timeline. I
I
know,
don't even. I
but
don't
I
even.
do.
Yeah, I didn't even think it was boring.
You know
I
why?
was
It's not
riveted.
not that I don't watch dramas. It's not that I don't get dialogue. It's just that my understanding when you come to the entertainment is that it says Star Wars on it. And so I come for Star Wars, not George Lucas's story, but wars
Yeah,
in the stars.
yeah.
That's what I come to Star Wars for.
I
So
completely.
like I'm already in a 10-year-old edge of my seat mode when I turn on Star Wars. And if it turns out to be hour after hour after hour after hour after hour of people talking to each other, it like I will hang on to hope that something is going to happen for episodes and episodes. But eventually it's like, damn, is anything ever going to happen? And then there's a couple of really cool moments in the series, but for the most part, it's just
It's
it has an important story to tell, but it just isn't Star Wars.
I see. I think it is. I was riveted the whole time. I'm not normally into dramas, but that one spoke to me. That one was
Hmm.
brilliant. But
I
I
will say that
completely,
season two looks fantastic. I
yeah.
mean,
And
so
I,
far it looks like season two is going to be all the Star Wars
well,
that I
also,
want it to
I
be.
want to be clear to everyone listening and to you as well, Vern, that I don't think less of anyone who thought that Andor, the show, was boring, the season one, because I completely understand. It's
Well, I hope
slow.
not.
Yeah, it's slower. It's not a Star Warsy show in that there aren't a lot of gunfights, but it is a show that is, I think, like absolutely brilliant. Because I like both. I personally like a movie that has a lot of gunfights and a lot of action, and I want it to go fast and at a very quick clip. But I also like shows
But not
that
too
are,
fast.
well, but I also like shows.
Fast, but not too fast.
Well, I don't want it to be rushed. I don't mind if the action is fast, but I don't want the story to feel rushed. But I also don't mind a show like Andor, which is lots of intrigue and very little action because the message is how bad the Empire is. It was the best look we got at how it is to live when the Emperor rules things.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah, we should also mention the installation of Anakin into his suit. That is an incredibly heavy and
yeah,
critical moment in the story where we actually see him transform from the man to the machine. But then I will also
juxtaposed
say that
juxtap-
juxtaposed to what?
juxtaposed to Padme giving birth to the two
Oh, yeah.
happens at
Yeah,
exactly the same time.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never thought about that juxtaposition. But I will say that when he stands up, like he realizes that Padme's dead, and I I I I don't want to nitpick and complain about the little things, but like first of all, the lackluster know that James Earl Jones delivers is it just feels very forced and very
Yeah.
staged, and
Well, the
it
no
doesn't
moment
feel
is,
like
yeah.
a gut punch emotional response from Anakin. But then I think even more than that, I think that no would have maybe worked a little better if there was something more than just a couple of little glass vials that gets crunched. Like it's like the most powerful being in the universe has just had the most gut wrenching loss and turnaround of anybody ever in history. And he wakes up in pain, encased in a prison that he's going to spend the rest of his life in. And when he freaks out, the most powerful being in the universe,
Mhm.
and when he freaks out, there's a couple of little glass vials that crunch, and there's
Yeah.
a little dent in the wall that happens. It's like, damn, I feel like this whole room, out of hate, out of sheer pain and hatred for it being the place where it birthed him, that whole room should have been imploded somehow. I think him
Yeah.
and Palpatine should have had to like remove themselves somehow, be moved to another area because of the sheer instinctual destruction that Vader's mind would have done to that room.
I think
And so
that,
because there's no power in the effects, because there's no power in the telekinesis that he delivers, then I feel like that No also ends up becoming powerless. The two
Yeah.
together make that response way weaker than I would have liked it
I
to
agree.
be.
And I don't even fault James Earl Jones. I don't think that no was the proper thing for him to say. And I don't think there was a good way to say it because no is not right. It doesn't make sense there. He should have screamed.
It could have been a
Just
growl, like a
it could have
primal
been
growl.
just yeah, just screaming in anguish, not forming a
Yeah.
word and
Yeah,
just
yeah, and
screaming
it also could have
and
been digitized too, because his suit was still kind of calibrating itself and getting used to him.
yeah,
So if it had been like a primal growl with like a little bit of digitization in the background, it would have been like a little preview of how it's not entirely a man we're dealing with now,
yeah.
but there's nothing but sheer rage and pain behind what he's experiencing.
And when I first saw it, I was also a little bit like wondering if that was really the best way for Palpatine to tell him, because I could see it going two ways. Palpatine says, "In your, it seems in your anger you killed her," and what happens is exactly what did happen. He is enraged at himself and at everything in the universe for killing Padme. But on the other hand, it also could have said to him I turned to the dark side and I got nothing out of it. This was all wrong. I need to kill Palpatine now. He led me down this path. He got Palpatine. He got Padme killed. You know, I could see it happening either way. So I
Yeah,
guess
but you have to take into consideration the fact that the dark side captures Anakin's mind at this point. Like he's not thinking straight. In fact, one could say he is a puppet.
yeah,
He is literally a puppet to a galaxy spanning impartial. It's not even really impartial. It's partial to evil.
yeah,
I
yeah.
guess
Palpatine is
for
wholly
lack of a better way to
evil.
put it, a
Yeah,
not telekinetic, telepathic supernatural entity.
yeah,
It's the force is not really ever given like a personality, but it's basically a telepathic, mind controlling, negative, evil, galactic spanning, ever present entity that has now got a grip on Anakin to the point where we can't really blame him for anything because that's why it's Vader, not him.
yeah. So on our next show, for if you haven't figured it out, our next show we're gonna delve into the prequel, into the sequels with Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. I think we have a lot to talk about with that one. Um,
Oh boy, we get to do the Disney movies next.
it,
This is
don't
gonna be fun.
sound like that. I love the Disney movies.
Well, no, but like we just did three movies where I'm defending them and you're attacking them. We're about to do three movies where I'm going to be attacking them and you're going to be defending them.
I
So that'll
hope
be
that I
interesting.
can. That's the thing that worries me, though, because I've said it before. I don't think I'm as eloquent as you are. But I
That's your lack
guess,
of self confidence talking, Josh.
well, we'll leave it
You
to
love
the
them for a reason. Hopefully, you're not loving them blindly.
no.
So I'll explain my good reasoning, and you'll explain your good reasoning, and that'll be it.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll leave it to the audience to determine what you think. Um, but in any case, that's next week. I hope that you've enjoyed the show. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Feel free to leave a comment. I always read them. I mean, that's easy to say right now. We've had a total of like 9 comments, but feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Um, so thank you, everyone. And as always, make tomorrow better than yesterday.